2025 just hit different for PlayStation owners. After years of cross-gen compromises and the we're still figuring out hardware issues excuses, this was the year that PS5 really flexed. We got sequels that actually lived up to the hype, darlings that came out of nowhere, and horror games that made us sleep with the lights on. So grab your DualSense controllers, make sure they're charged because mine never is, and let's count down the best games of 2025 for the PS5. Kicking things off is Stalker 2, which finally made its way to PlayStation after what felt like an eternity. And honestly, the port slaps. The exclusion zone is as haunting and unforgiving as ever, packed with anomalies that'll turn you inside out if you're not careful. What really stands out is how the DualSense implementation elevates the whole experience. Those haptics when you're scanning for anomalies was honestly a chef's kiss. Adaptive triggers during the firefights adds this extra layer of tension that the PC version just doesn't have. Plus, the performance is rock solid considering how dense and atmospheric the world is. If you've been sleeping on this because you thought it was another PC shooters, think again. Stalker 2 on PS5 proves sometimes the best version isn't always the first one.
Even yourself. I didn't choose the zone chose me. Now, it's your time to choose.
Now for something completely different, The Midnight Walk looks like a fever dream that Tim Burton had after binging Wallace and Gromit, and I mean that in the best way possible. This indie gem wraps you in this claymation aesthetic that's equal parts whimsical and deeply unsettling. You can finish it in one sitting, but that doesn't make it forgettable at all. The atmosphere here is suffocating in the best way possible. Every creaky floorboard, every shadow feels intentional. In those stealth sections, they're generally nerve-wracking despite the game looking like it could air on Cartoon Network. The sound design deserves a special shout out too. Stick with some headphones on this one and let it mess with your head for a couple hours. Sometimes the best horror games are the one that you least expect.
All it needs is a little spark, and then I get what I need.
Took the sun away.
Next up is Days Gone Remastered, and look, I know what you're thinking, another remastered, really? But hear me out, Days Gone was always this close to being great, and the remastered finally pushed it over the edge. Sony Ben didn't reinvent the wheel here, but they polished it until it shined. The biggest difference was the performance. Fighting through hundreds of hordes and freakers used to turn the original PS4 version into a slideshow. Now it's buttery smooth, even when you're knee deep in zombies and explosions are going off everywhere. The 60 FPS makes bike handling way tighter, the gunplay feels way crunchier, and the whole game just breathes better. Yeah, Deacon still talks to himself like he's practicing for a TED Talk, but if you can get past this constant chattering, this is the version that Days Gone should have launched in the first place. Next up is Blueprints. Blueprints is proof that you don't need a massive budget or Hollywood actors to make something special. This is a puzzle roguelike hybrid that shouldn't work as well as it does, but somehow it absolutely nails the landing. The premise here is simple. You're exploring a mansion, but you're drawing the rooms as you go. Each run is different because you're literally choosing which puzzle rooms appear. The genius is in how it makes you feel clever without being punishing. You'll fail, sure, but each attempt teaches you something new about how the rooms connect to each other, what you need to do to reach that mysterious 46th room. Even if you normally bounce off roguelikes or find puzzle games boring, Blueprints has this magnetic quality that keeps you pulling you back in for just one more run. It's that kind of game that makes you look up at 2 a.m. and wondering where the last 4 hours of your time went.
Fail. Then this gift shall lapse.
From the team that brought us Pathless comes Sword of the Sea, and if you love that game, this is basically that DNA refined and perfected. The art direction here is stunning and vibrant colors that pop off of the screen, fluid animation that makes traveling feel like you're dancing across the landscape. There's something meditative about just existing in the world. The soundtrack wraps around you like a warm blanket, and the controls are so intuitive that within minutes you're pulling out that look way cooler than they have the right to. And yes, there are some frame drops even on the PS5, which is a bummer, but even when chugging slightly, Sword of the Sea delivers that same zen-like flow state that made Pathless so memorable. If you need a palate cleanser between all the gloom and doom on this list, this one is for you. Here's where things get wild on the list. Where Winds Meet is a free-to-play game, which immediately makes a lot of people suspicious. I get that. But somehow this Chinese-developed open-world action RPG manages to deliver a triple experience without constantly shaking you down for microtransactions. Set in 10th century China, this game throws everything at the wall. Massive open world, Witcher 3 style side quests, boss battles, mini games, immersive STEM mechanics that you can approach situation in many different ways. It's ambitious as hell, but sure, there are some rough edges and occasional glitches that remind you that this wasn't made by a Western AAA studio, but the sheer amount of content is staggering. The fact that you can experience all of this for $0 is borderline criminal. Don't sleep on Where Winds Meet just because it's free to play.
The winds are high. Will you answer?
Lost Soul Aside is one of those stories that you love to see. What started as literally one dude making a tech demo in his spare time eventually evolved into this fully fledged action RPG. And yes, it got some growing pains. The story wasn't going to win any awards, and you can tell this is a debut effort, but man, when this game combat really clicks, it really clicks. The comparison to Final Fantasy is unavoidable. The crystals, the character designs, the anime style. It's all there, but Lost Soul Aside carves its own identity with the combat that's way more aggressive and technical than anything in modern Final Fantasy. Boss fights demand pattern recognition and the split-second timing. It's not quite Souls level difficulty, but it'll punish you for button mashing. For an indie team's first shot, this game was impressive. The bones of something truly special are here. Here's the thing about Dying Light the Beast. You don't need to have touched the previous Dying Light games to jump in. It's a standalone baby, and thank God for that, because this entry finally brings us back to the oppressive horror atmosphere the first game nailed, but sequel that kind of fumbled. Kyle Crane returns, which is cool if you're a nerd for lore, but he's got beast power that turns you into an absolutely wrecking ball. Caster Wood is darker, denser, and way more terrifying than anything in Dying Light. The skill tree is the best the series ever had, giving you actual meaningful choices instead of just stat bumps. This is Dying Light for people who want more horror and less Parker in broad daylight. If that sounds cool to you, this is an essential game. Kronos: The New Dawn. Bloober Team has been on an absolutely tear with survival horror this year. After knocking Silent Hill Remake out of the park, they turned around and dropped Kronos, which might have been even better. Set in 1980s Portland, Kronos nails that claustrophobic dread where every bullet feels precious and every enemy encounter is a general threat. You move slowly, your resources are limited, and the game is constantly trying to get in your head. The atmosphere is so thick that you can cut it with the knives. Sound design plays a huge role here. You'll be jumping at creaks and groans that turn out to be nothing, which makes the real threats even more terrifying. And yes, you'll see that depth screen a lot, but when you finally push through that impossible section, the relief is intoxicating. Kronos is survival horror that actually makes you want to survive. Hollow Knight Silksong. After many years of any day now, memes, radio, Silksong jokes, Hollow Knight Silksong finally releases in 2025, and you know what? It was absolutely worth the wait. Team Cherry took everything that made Hollow Knight special and somehow made it even better. The boss fights were more dynamic, the performance was tighter, and Hornet plays completely different from Knight in ways that keeps the game feeling fresh even if you played the original to death. The level design is masterclass level stuff, interconnected, rewarding explorations, and packed with secrets that makes you feel like you're a genius when you find them. You're looking at 30+ hours of content here, and that's if you're not a completionist. The hand-drawn art style is gorgeous, the soundtrack slaps, and even if you never played the first game, Silksong stands on its own. Metroidvania fans, this is your game of the year right here. Next up is Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. Remakes are tricky. Go too far and you lose what made the original special. Don't go far enough and people ask why'd you even bother. Metal Gear Solid Delta finds that perfect middle ground. This is Snake Eater in 4K with all the modern quality of life features that you'd want, but Konami didn't mess with what worked with the original. The cutscenes are one-to-one creations but look stunning. The gameplay additions, crouch walking, over the shoulder aiming, feels like they were always supposed to be there, and the new cosmetic damage system where Snake visibly gets more beat up throughout the mission, that attention to details was an absolutely chef's kiss. If you never played Snake Eater, this is the definitive way to experience one of the best Metal Gear games ever made. If you've played the original, this is an excuse to go all over it again.
Prove your loyalty. I've been waiting, Snake. Waiting for your birth, your growth.
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is what happens when developer gets a bigger budget and actually uses it wisely. Everything that made the first game so special, the historical accuracy, the immersive sim elements, the combat that doesn't hold your hand is back but way more refined. The world design is breathtaking. Towns like Cuttenberg feel alive in the ways that most open world games never achieve. NPC has routine, the architecture is period accurate, and you generally feel like you've been transported into this medieval Europe. Combat is challenging but more intuitive now. You're not getting bodied by random bandits 20 hours into the game, but the story and the side quests are where the game transcends. The writing is sharp, the voice acting is top tier, and the cinematographic rivals anything that Sony first party studios have put out. If you ever wanted to live in a medieval RPG, this is the game that you want to play through. Silent Hill F took a risk by moving the series to rural Japan, and somehow it paid off completely. This doesn't feel like Silent Hill trying to be something else. It feels like Silent Hill understands its DNA and expressing it in a new way. That trademark fog is definitely here, but now it's rolling through rice paddy and traditional Japanese culture in ways that feels way more unsettling than the American suburbs' previous games. The monster designs are grotesque and uncomfortable in the ways that Silent Hill always have been. The camera work consistently has you checking over your shoulder. Combat is way more aggressive this time around. You're encouraged to engage rather than just run, which changes dynamic in interesting ways. 5 different endings giving you plenty of reasons to replay, and honestly, you'll want to. Silent Hill F proves the series still has life when it's in the right hands.
I hated my father. I didn't really like my mother either.
Turn-based RPGs had a hell of a year, and Clair Obscur is a big reason why. This game takes the classic formula and injects real-time elements that keep you engaged in a way that traditional turn-based combat sometimes struggle with. The timing, parries, aiming weak points, and making split-second decisions that keep every encounter feeling alive. The enemy variety forces you to actually think about strategy instead of just mashing the same attacks over and over again. But beyond the combat is really the story that hooks you. The characters are grappling with some heavy themes, morality, grief, the weight of time slipping away, and the game doesn't shy away from any of that. There's a genuine sense of urgency because everyone's lifespan is literally counting down. You need to solve this mystery, and the game makes you feel that pressure. If you've been waiting for a turn-based RPG that respects your time and intelligence, this one is it.
I know it seems absurd to offer oblivion as recompense, but
Ghost of Yotei is what happens when a developer gets to build a game exclusively for one console. No compromises, no last gen versions holding it back, just pure unfiltered PS5 power. The open world is jaw-dropping, drawn distances that stretch to the horizon without any pop-ins, weather system that feel dynamic thanks to the SSD. Sucker Punch took everything that they learned from Tsushima and cranked it to an 11. But it's not just a technical showcase. The story built around the Yotei 6 gives you compelling targets throughout the campaign. The sword combat still feels incredible, the stealth is refined, and the whole package just oozes polish. This is the game that shows your friends when they ask, why do I need a PS5? Ghost of Yotei is the premier PS5 exclusive right now, and it's going to be tough to beat.
And you will know my name.
And finally, we have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Death Stranding 2 is our #1 pick on this list, and honestly, nothing was really close. Kojima took 5 years to build the sequel, and you'll feel every bit of time in the level of craft on display here. The original Stranding was divisive. People either loved it or thought it was a walking simulator. This sequel takes that foundation and builds something that is just objectively better in every way. The delivery mechanics are deeper and more satisfying. The new environments, Mexico and Australia, are stunning and offer completely different travel challenges. The day-night cycle, the dynamic weather system, the earthquakes, the sandstorms that completely change your route. It all comes together to create this emergent gameplay that makes every delivery feel unique. And as far as the story, the cast is even more stacked this time with Hollywood talent, and their performances just absolutely justify the budget. Characters have depth and motivation that makes sense, and that moments that will stick with you long throughout the credits roll. But what makes Death Stranding 2 our game of the year is how it embodies what a PlayStation exclusive should be. It's ambitious, it's weird, and it takes risk, and it uses the PS5 hard weights in ways that just aren't possible anywhere else. This is Kojima at absolutely peak, and it's one of the best games PlayStation have ever published.
How does it feel to be back in the saddle?
Works same as it ever was.
2025 was absolutely stacked for PlayStation owners, and these games prove that the console has finally come into its own. Whether you're into horror, RPGs, or action games, or hell, even experimental indie stuff, there was something for everyone this year. What was your favorite PS5 game for 2025? Did I miss anything that deserves a spotlight on this list? Let me know in the comments below, and if you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe, because I love when YouTube gives me money for doing nothing. We've got more countdowns, reviews, and gaming content coming your way. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.